Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. This is the first thing I want to say. I'm really happy to be here in Ljubljana because it's only my second time, and the first time I obviously didn't get anything of the city. It's wonderful. I also love the event. Just mentioning that I'm also the vice president of the Austrian Presse Club Concordia, Press Club Concordia, and I think it's so important, and I love it when journalists come together and talk about journalism, because that's a necessary thing, and that's a necessary discourse in times like these. I was invited, and of course I will do that, to talk about what APA, my company, is doing with AI, but I also will talk about what we are not doing, because there are many decisions to make when it comes to AI and journalism and AI in the media business, and we try to think hard about this every day. But perhaps you wonder why the deputy editor-in-chief of a national news agency in Austria is sort of AI savvy, or actually why I'm sitting here and why I'm talking about AI. In my role at APA, I have been working with digital and innovation topics and basically stuff for years now. And I'm also part of the APA task force AI. As you can see, shiny happy people working for APA and shiny happy people working with AI. We are so happy to be part of this task force. The special thing about this is these are not only journalists. APA may be a little bit unusual for a news agency like a national small news agency, because we are actually much more than the journalistic products and the newsroom. We have several subsidiaries, a tech company, a company with products for the PR and communication business, and so on and so on. And people from all over these companies and units work together in the task force. So you can see, for example, our head of innovation management, our CDO, our head of visual desks, our spokesperson, and so on and so on. And I'm the one who represents the newsroom, the editorial unit in this task force. And we love it, as you can see. What are the tasks? There are quite a lot. We started this year, in the beginning of this year. I mean, as I've said, we have been dealing with AI, the one or other aspect of AI for years. Also, GPT wasn't new to us, of course. We have been following the development of the model for years. But with the launch of ChatGPT 1 year ago, it was sort of obvious that the topic was now sort of ripe for serious discussion when it comes to the usage in media. So we initiated the task force. Our CEO initiated the task force. And we had quite a lot of tasks. It ran from building AI literacy in our newsroom and at upper staff to strategic developments, just thinking about this thing. And I will talk about the strategy mandate for, I think, a little later on, because this is the most important thing. I think we need to think and then decide. Also, following the developments and the thing, AI and AI technology is developing so fast, you need a designated team that knows what's new and what it means, and so on, and so on, and so on. And of course, I love knowing what I'm talking about when I'm talking about something. And this is also what we did. And first we did some definition, because, as you know, AI is sort of the new digital. I mean, I've been a journalist for 25 years, and when I started out, the internet was the buzzword. And I wrote stories because I was the media reporter for APA for quite some time. I wrote stories like, this and that company has a website now. Wow, yeah. And, and some years later, I wrote stories like, this and that person is on Facebook now, because social media was the new buzzword. And some years later, I wrote X and Y, and he or she isn't on Facebook anymore, because that was also news. Then there were the buzzwords like multimedia, convergence, you know, every journalist should be able to do everything at once, at the same time. And digital, of course, digital transformation, digital business, digital blah, blah, blah. And now it's AI. So we should know what we talk about when we talk about AI. Because AI is already everywhere. I mean, it has been around for ages, and I'm sure that most of you have been using applications or tools like DeepL, or have the one or the other smart speaker at home. I have 3 from every company, because I like to know what they do, and sometimes I even try to get them into a quarrel with each other. We use it in our cars, and we have navigation systems, and so on and so on. It's everywhere. But when we talk about AI today, we talk about ChatGPT, and that's actually kind of narrow-minded. Yeah. And it narrows the view on what AI means also for our business, and that applies, of course, for every sector. It's the same at health and so on. Yeah, we talk about AI, and we think about chatting with the machine. No, that's not all of it. Yeah. So at Upper, we have sort of, we went on a strategic journey, because first you have to learn, you have to get the information. Actually, this is quite a journalistic approach, isn't it? Because first you have to find the information, and you have to try to understand it, contextualize it. Yeah? What does it mean? What do I do with this new knowledge, with this new technology? What do I know enough? Then you have to teach your stuff, and this is very important. For example, at Upper, we have held numerous webinars, presentations, workshops, I'll get to that later, and so on, to make sure that our employees are able to tell basically how these systems work, what the potentials are, what the limitations are, what's okay to do and what's a no-go, because there are several no-goes, of course. Then go back to thinking a little bit more, and then act and decide. And then decide what you are going to do with this new technology. Yeah? Because this, I wrote this in the train, the last sentence. It sounds a little bit too pompous, but actually, I'm an impatient person, and I love being first mover, early adapter, and so on and so on. But when it comes to generative AI in journalism, you shouldn't, actually. You should think first and then act. Because this is what we sometimes see. I love this cartoon so much. I saw it at a presentation myself some months ago, and I actually went and bought it. I bought a license for presentations for a year, because because that's what happens right now. I don't know if you followed, for example, the development in Germany, where some very, very big publishers announced that they were cutting down 20% of the journalists, because AI is going to do that. Good luck with that, actually. I mean, this is plain stupid in my personal opinion. But I think I'm speaking for the task force here. I'm talking about generative AI a lot today, because that is the thing that sort of makes us think now. But this is just a view on Upper's portfolio. At a glance is sort of ironic, because I think you need more than one glance. And you see in the middle here, there's content generation. That's one part of our AI portfolio. And this is basically everything with large language models. But there's much, much, much more to it. We've sort of segmented it into visual AI. For example, we have developed a face recognition filter for image search, and we developed it ourselves. We developed it with very, very high privacy standards, and so on and so on. We even introduced a new role to the newsroom, the visual trust officer, to make sure that this tool or this application is basically fine, okay. Then we have the speech AIs, and so on and so on. And you also see very important pillars, I'd say: policy, governance, guidelines, roles, processes. Yeah, this is the think part, actually. The think and the teach part. The teach part is another one. AI literacy has become so much more important than media literacy. I mean, everybody who sits on a panel discussion right now and talks about media literacy is a little bit too late. We need tech literacy, and we need AI literacy. And we sell trainings and consulting to other media companies, but also to other companies. And I've just held a workshop at the First Alpine, which is a very, very big prompting workshop, telling them what they should do and what they shouldn't do with ChatGPT. And we're building up a knowledge infrastructure, because all these large language models that are basically the foundation for generative AI when it comes to text, but also image, all these models, they need information. They need the pieces of language to be able to process them and reproduce them. So we're building persons, organizations, concepts, taxonomy, metadata, and so on, knowledge spaces, to be able to train our own models soon. Yeah, content generation with generative AI. I mean, we know the hype, because when ChatGPT was introduced, the articles began to pop up. It writes better than the human. We won't need journalists anymore. You know, you all know these. I personally don't think it writes better than a human, and I know we are going to need journalists a lot. And this is the one obligatory machine-created picture that you need in a presentation on AI. It's quite old, and it's also ironic because I issued a strict ban on images like this at APA, I think 5 years ago. I said, I don't want to see a robot in a human form. I don't want to see machine fingers on a keyboard. This invokes completely wrong images in people's head. This induces fear, and this is not what we are doing. It's not, yeah. Because what does AI in journalism mean? This is my current punchline. I like it a lot, but I think it sounds better in German. I don't know if Diepel was okay here. AI in journalism, everybody sees the image, the picture I just showed, the machine hand, and you feel it makes you feel uneasy, doesn't it? Yeah. But that's the wrong conception. AI in journalism doesn't mean that the AI is a journalist, because, spoiler, it can't be a journalist. So, what can we do with it in journalism? First, again, think. Every journalist, I hope so, works based on a foundation, I'd say, of values. Ours are actually written down in our statute, so we do have to obey these, and I'm very glad for this. And these values are actually one of the reasons why I have been working with APA for 25 years now. And I went, 15 years ago, I went and joined the newspaper, and I returned to APA 2 years later, because not only, but also the money was good, but because of these values. And if you look at these, I mean, there's nothing, to write home about, actually. I'm sure everybody in this room and in the audience knows these. But look at them and think about the current discourse on AI and ethics. Most of these values can very easily be transposed into the AI age. Yeah? If we talk about impartiality, and non-biased. Bias is a big thing when we talk about AI. We know the stuff. We know how that works. If we talk about transparency, accountability, all these buzzwords that make up the discourse on AI and ethics, it's our core value. And actually, if you think about this, that's quite a promising position for journalists, because we don't need to start thinking about values. Oh, there's a new technology. Ooh, what does it mean? What should I do? How should I act? Because we have our rail guards for our work. Also, I mean, just a sidestep, AI ethics. There was another incident in Germany because one of those yellow press magazines, they let an AI invent an interview with Michael Schumacher, the Formula One star. And the editor-in-chief was fired because the AI had invented a story. I mean, we're talking about a magazine that has been inventing stories for years without AI. That was not a problem. I mean, poor AI. I mean, couldn't help it. So that's a stupid way, I think, of sort of discuss AI ethics in journalism. Yeah? A clever way of discussing AI ethics in journalism is to look at your own core values, yeah? And then take them and then apply them to your usage of AI. And then step back perhaps 1 minute, because everybody claims that ChatGPT, GPT, and other models like these are going to be the better journalists because they write so perfectly. Whoops. What's journalism actually? What are we doing? What do we do every day? We're storytellers, and that's not just one fancy buzzword from another panel discussion. We tell stories because it's a very good way to reach people with important information. And human beings are story listeners, storytellers. It has been like this for forever. I actually studied literature science, so this is why there are some very important sounding words in this, because journalism is narration, is storytelling, but it's a special kind of narration because we don't invent things. Yeah? We don't write fiction. We do non-fictional narration, and it has to be fact-based. So we have to show where the information comes from. Yeah. Facts, we don't invent anything, and we can develop narrative strategies. And now we get back. I think I trust that every one of you has played around with ChatGPT or more. These are three things that those machines aren't very good at, I'd say. Facts, don't invent, and tell a story. And that's one of my favorite tweets. It's quite old by now, but Neil Gaiman, I think, just nailed it. ChatGPT and other models don't give us information and don't give us stories and don't give us facts. It's information-shaped sentences or information or story-shaped blocks of text. That's not what we do. And what's more, of course, journalism is so much more than writing or writing an article or writing a radio piece or filming. Journalism starts with looking for information, receiving information, questioning the information, checking. I won't have to tell you. It's not just the writing. When I was young, I wanted to become a journalist because I wanted to write. And then I became a journalist and I realized there's so much more to journalism than writing. And that I like that, actually. But it was sort of an aha moment. And the current discourse on journalists that can be replaced by AI don't take this into account at all. This is quite annoying, I think. It's especially annoying if journalists write stuff like this, but I will be mild today with us. Just to make sure that everybody knows this, I'm sure they do, but large language models like GPT or Google Bard or Bing Chat and so on, they don't know anything about facts, and they don't approach or they don't use a database to retrieve facts in the form as they are presented to us. Because OpenAI, the company that launched ChatGPT, that also was quite misleading in this has been trained with the internet up to the year 2021. So everybody thinks it knows everything the internet until 2021 knows. But of course, that's not the case. So I'll just explain the principle in two sentences so we can be clear why this is what the reason is. GPT is actually one big calculation machine. It takes texts and language and slices it into very small pieces of words called the tokens, and is trained and learns the plausibility and how often specific tokens are combined. And this is why it knows that if I say I am from Austria, then it might be Alia or Ia, and more statistically plausible would be Australia. So this is the highest probability, but Austria is also probable. And depending on certain parameters that are applied to the model, it will sort of come up with the wrong answer, because I'm not from Australia. Austria, no kangaroos there, you know. Or with the right answer, because it chooses the not quite so plausible answer. And if you understand this principle, of course, then you know that no matter how well trained these models are going to be, because ChatGPT started with GPT-3, 3.5, now we're with 4. The principle won't change. It won't have any factual database available. Never, ever. And this is why they will always hallucinate. That's what it's called. If they produce garbage, I think the more common word is becoming confabulation now, and I like confabulation. It's very nice, but this is a fact. You won't ever have a large language model that is 100% correct. You can apply some strategies to provide it factual data, but still the thing combines parts of words. That's it. Yeah. And this is also why AI literacy is so important. And this is actually something we told our journalists. We showed them. You can even look at the tokenizer. You can use some older GPT models to reproduce the probability and to check if the model used the most probable or the least probable token, and so on, because it demystifies the machines, and that's quite important, I think. And this is, I copied also the Associated Press. I really like what they are doing with AI. They've been avant-garde when it comes to AI in journalism for, I think, 10 years now. And they published their guidelines on the use of AI in September, a little bit later than we did. But they actually tell the journalists, we don't use generative AI for our journalistic processes and products. We don't use it. And any output from any Gen AI is to be treated as unvetted material. You have to fact check that. That's actually the same thing we have in our guideline, which were published, the updated version in early summer. And I was so happy for AP because up till they published these, I was asked in Austria, yeah, you're quite afraid or what? Why don't you use it? I said, because it's not really safe. I won't tell ChatGPT to write me a story. It's not safe. It's just a big effort to fact check the stuff, because usually it invents some politician nobody has ever heard of. Yeah, I mean, there's some good stuff, of course. You can use it for lots of use cases, and I'll get to them. You have to know the good, and you have to know the bad. And there's a lot of bad as well. And this graphic really sucks, and every time I show it, I say, I will redo this at some point. But this strange thing in the middle, the autonomy factor, that's the crucial strategic decision everybody has to make. Because when we think of using AI in journalism, we know the bad parts and we know the good parts, but we have still to decide how much autonomy we are ready to grant the model, the machine. I sort of visualize this as an autonomy slider. Yeah. So for which use case, which job would you say, how much autonomy are you ready to give up as a journalist? Or are you ready to give up any? How autonomous is the machine allowed to act? So this can be 0 or 100. So this is the slide, I'd say. This is very important because they are autonomous systems, but you can sort of limit their autonomy. We thought about what we were going to do, and if we were going to do something, together with our staff, we had several workshops, prompting workshops, just ideas that came from the newsroom. It was definitely a bottom-up process, because I did a survey, an internal survey, for example. Hey, have you already played around with ChatGPT? Yes, cool. And what did you try? And did you also try something that would help you in your daily work as a journalist? And there were some really brilliant ideas, and we tried those out, and we had some first versions of some prompts. And this would have been let's transform our business based on something I just tried once. But we didn't do that. So after some workshops, we had, I would say, a set of promising prompts for different use cases. And this is not very fancy. I think almost every media outlet, newsroom that plays around with GPT comes to these use cases. Yeah. But then we took these prompts and started to work with them. And for example, we have one text to data, but I'll talk about this. We have one prompt for title variations. Nothing fancy either. Just the usual agency, article, and 5, 7, 10 variations of the title. Why? Because our customers don't like duplicate content. News agency content tends to be duplicate content, so we can use AI to sort of help them and get their individualized title at least. And we've been working with this prompt, I think, for 4 months now, and it's still not finished because we're still not happy with it. Because in the end, we have a prompt designer, a specialist, a young woman we hired half a year ago, and she's definitely a developer and IT person. And every time she gets back to me with the newest version and the output of the prompts, I say, no, because with journalists we're nitpickers. But that's the difference between just doing any prompt and using it, or really providing a trustworthy, accurate, non-biased. Yeah, you remember the core values. All this, the outputs have to comply with our values. Another thing is a very basic text shortener. Yeah? There's a long text, write a shorter version of this. I could do this myself with this prompt in 1 hour, and it will work fine. Sometimes it won't work, then it will work fine again, but that's not reliable. So that's also something we have almost finished now. It takes time. We are not the first movers, but our AI stuff is great. And all these different prompts for different use cases, we are now bundling up for a product. We call it Upper Text Assistant. And it's AI-supported text production. And let me get back to this. All our use cases focus on modifying existing content and assisting the journalists. We don't have any genuine generative AI prompting right now because we don't trust the models enough. We had also some fails, proof of concepts, like teach the machine to take a press release and turn it into an agency article. The time it took to fact check the output was so much more than the time it takes an experienced journalist to just write an article from the press release, that it wasn't worth it. So we won't do that for a long time, I guess, because also the outputs can't be really reproduced. If you take one press release and the article is fine, no hallucinations, no fictional politician and so on, that's good, but you can't be sure that the next time the output will be as good. So we don't do that. Generative AI in a modifying and assisting role, and the sort of basis for this is always a humanly and intellectually created article piece. And by the way, I'm talking about text. We don't have any generated images. We don't do that because we are a news agency and it's our job, and we have great photographers, but it's our job to show the reality as it is and not as it could be. Yeah, would be completely untrustworthy to generate, for example, photo-like AI stuff. So the Upper Text Assistant, we are developing this for us, for our editors and journalists, and we're selling it for whoever wants to use it. We have one thing already live. That's the text assistant social media. We don't use this, but some media companies use it, and especially also PR agencies and so on. You just take your press release or your article and you ask the assistant to turn it into a LinkedIn post or a Facebook post or a Twitter X thing. Lots of emojis and so on, and it works really great. And I think we worked on the prompt for 3 months so that the output is scalable, reliable, and nice. Yeah. And the thing is that this is a very, very good example for an AI product that is actually enhanced, refined, because of the journalistic expertise in the company. Because we know what we expect the machine to do. And so our customers can rely on this as well. This is why I like it. And one of my favorite use cases, and we're also almost finished with it, is it's one of my favorites because it's so non-sexy. It's not the machine that does the journalist's job, but it solves a huge pain in our newsroom. We have massively invested in our data-driven coverage, and we have created new products, and we do a lot around data-driven journalism. But there's always this one point where somebody has to open a spreadsheet and type in some data, because most of the data is hidden in text and is not structurized, and we need the data structurized. And this is something so annoying, because it's not our job as journalists to fill in spreadsheets. It's not. And when it comes to journalists like me, it's also not a good thing, because I'm not good with numbers, and then, have to correction, and I have to withdraw the article, and so we let the machine do this. And we created several prompts, for example, for political surveys, because we are going to have a super election year next year, not only the European election, also national parliament elections, some regional elections, so we're really like, ugh, democracy first, and all the newspapers Austrian newspapers don't have so much money, but they like spending money for surveys, and then they have the press releases and the articles, who is going to win, who would win if the election would be next Sunday, and so on. And we have actually a very cool thing on our website with this, an automatically updated visualization of all election surveys in Austria. Also with filters of the quality criteria and so on and so on. And the workflow is completely automated, except from that one situation where there's the press release of a magazine, for example, on Saturday afternoon. Tomorrow we have a new survey, and somebody has to sit down and type in the data, and I hate that. So we will sort of solve this with this prompt. And the other one, of course, for business reporting, finance and business reporting. Usually our editor from the economics department returns from a press conference with text like this, with figures, numbers. And then he copies and pastes some of the numbers into an email and sends this to the infographics editor. This is stupid. So we will automate this with the prompt. And I like to show this prompt especially in front of an audience that's not journalistic, because it's sort of it also demystifies the machine is better than the journalist, because the machine wouldn't know which data to extract if we wouldn't tell the machine. Another thing we have taken really seriously is the issue of data security and safe working with AI. Because, I'm sure if you use the free version of ChatGPT, it's like it always is. If something's free, you pay in the other way, so you pay with the data. And also the question of were these models trained actually? I mean, where did the content come from? They didn't originate in the internet until 2021, of course. Are we willing to give away our content in perhaps even sensitive information, like unpublished interviews, transcripts of unpublished interviews, and so on? Provide OpenAI with means to train their model with these data and information? I don't think so. So this is also something we started very early this year. We told our staff, you do not use ChatGPT. You won't ever enter anything journalism or upper related into a model without making sure that this data is not used for training purposes of the model, and we will provide you with means to do that. Because we can't, of course, ask you to pay for ChatGPT Pro privately. We won't do that. And if you want to share your travel plans with OpenAI, go ahead, but don't share your interview transcripts with OpenAI. And, animation. In the meantime, we have partnered up with an Austrian company. It's called 506, and he's Gerald Körner, who is head of the company, is very active in developing interesting solutions when it comes to AI. And he has developed something that's called Company GPT, and we've partnered up, and we also we sell it to media and our clients. And it has a sort of GPT version for every company. These are hosted in Germany, so in Europe. You have the data, what's the English word for the DSGVO? Yeah, the EU data. Thank you. Ugh, embarrassing. So and companies and newsrooms can use this to work on prompts in a safe environment, to share the prompts, for usage, for further usage, and it's really nice. I work a lot with him, and it's actually become part of our AI portfolio. Yeah. It's not something we developed, but if somebody buys it from us, they also get some of our prompts, useful little helpers. And you can be sure nobody will use your stuff to train a model. And this is a little bit technical. I just wanted to show you that. Actually, I wanted to show you the square to the left, third party, OpenAI, Google, and so weiter, and so on, because our general approach to AI products and infrastructure, we try to be as supplier agnostic as possible. I know everybody talks about OpenAI and ChatGPT, but in our view, this is just one option of many. There are open source models, and it also comes, it depends on what you want to do. There's not only text generation, there's also embedded search, for example, semantic search. We're working a lot with that. So we take the technology and the supplier for the use case that's best for the specific use case, and we do a lot of self-training and fine-tuning. So we don't just rely on one OpenAI and don't send everything to OpenAI. We take the best of each technology, model, and supplier. We have our own APIs, we have our own prompts, we have our own models, and this is how we serve our customers as well. So they can buy sort of space at our API, not space, I don't know, yeah, but they pay for a request to the API, but everything is at upper, and this is a very comfortable sort of perspective also for the Austrian media sector. So I think I'm quite good in the time. To sum it up, generative AI is fascinating. It's very powerful when it comes to combining language. With ChatGPT, the entry barriers were sort of, they're below low. You have quick first results, but yeah. You don't need to be able to code. You don't need structured data. You just talk to the machine. That's really convenient. You have to be careful when it comes to security issues, of course. These machines are stupid when it comes to facts, when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to knowledge. To really be able to use them in a, I'd say, good way, in a promising way, you have to know that, and you have to have a high level of AI literacy. Any output of those machines is not scalable, and we know that scalability in our business has become a prime directive. Yeah. Precise prompting, really precise prompting, is extremely time-consuming, and it can get quite expensive very quick. Because if you develop a prompt that sort of redirects itself, just self-checking, if you make the machine check its output again and again, I mean, that's one prompt, 10 euro or so. Yeah? Then take that to 5,000 documents a day. It's not free, not at all. And then there are, of course, the strategic issues. I think every company, every newsroom, and not only in the media sector, has to ask the question, what do I want to do? Does it make sense to use AI for it? And which AI? Because there's more to AI than ChatGPT. Just one word, because I've been talking about AI literacy all the time. Being literate for journalists has sort of two dimensions. Of course, we need to know how to use technology, we need to understand it, and we need to be able to assess it. But when we report on AI, that's also that's actually quite a big responsibility. And in the first weeks after the publication of ChatGPT, I was regularly like screaming under the shower in the morning, because I usually listen to the main news program of the public broadcaster, and almost every day some expert was interviewed by some journalist. Neither of them had any idea what they were talking about, and it was so annoying. It was really so annoying. And I had like sort of a weekend-long chat with one of the editor-in-chiefs of one of our newspapers, because they just had so stupid articles, and I was like, oh, I'm very disappointed. Why did you do that? And what do you mean? I was, oh, yeah. So it was articles like, our experts for opera asked ChatGPT what it knows about opera. Turns out it answered wrong. I was like, oh yeah? I mean, could you please stop writing articles like these? I mean, by now, I have the link somewhere. I can provide you with it. There have come up some initiatives like responsibly and correctly reporting on AI. And this is so important, I think. Okay, so I have some randomly scattered rectangles. I often get asked, are your journalists at APA afraid of AI? Or are you extremely euphoric about it? And we are neither, of course, because we're journalists. It's not our job to be afraid, and it's not our job to be like blindly enthusiastic. We stand in the middle, we look at the stuff, we think about it, we contextualize it, and then we act. Yeah. Because we are the humans in control. So this is the case, and I think this would always be the case. And I've mentioned our guidelines. This is actually the basic message of our guidelines. Human in control, not only in the loop, the journalist in control. And if you do that, then some use cases are just not possible. These are our red lines. Then we don't do it. We won't self-publish any stuff without a human in control. These guidelines, unfortunately, I think we have only a German version, but we will provide them in English soon, and I'll happily also send the link or the PDF or whatever, because the first version of this guideline was actually published more than a year ago when we developed the face recognition algorithm, and we used this project, this software project, to sort of learn how to do AI governance, and wrote the first version of this guideline. And this year, of course, taking into consideration the development in generative AI, we published an update. And the principles, the primacy of human action, I have stressed this more than once now. We even provide sort of a checklist. If I plan to do something with AI, what should I have in mind, and so on and so on. They have been actually a huge success, because most of the media companies started this summer to think about things like this. And that's actually also something we have learned, that AI enables us to spread the knowledge as if it were a journalistic product. And it is actually. It's not a content product, but it is. And this shows the potential if you learn, think, act. Okay, 43 minutes. Great. Thank you very much. Questions, please.
Hi, Mojca Zorko, STA. I just wanted to ask you, I know you're probably not going to tell us how big of financial burden is this for you? I mean, how much does it cost to do all your own prompts? But maybe you can tell us, how do you finance it with the sales to other media, or what's the model of financing it? And also I want to know, with the content that is based on AI, do you need to sort of label it for the publishing? Thank you.
For the first question, right now we sort of have an exploration budget for it, and the business plans, it's a little bit too early for a solid business plan, but That's actually, I can tell you. I mean, we for example, in our upper tech subsidiary, we have had an R&D department for years now. So really, the cool AI nerds, not some self-claimed AI experts like me, but guys who are so deep into this stuff, and they've been working with some AI stuff for years, and this has always been the place for innovation and ideation and development without a price tag. Yeah. And also our prompt design specialist, she works with this team. Yeah. And part of the budget is also situated right in the central, directly at the CDO, and it's sort of his playing money at the moment. Yeah, and it's not that expensive, you have to say. I mentioned the expensive prompts, but it's not like we spend thousands and thousands every week for licensing fees. So we don't. As for the labeling question, yeah, that's a very interesting question. For example, we have been doing automated journalism for years. So I call it the old stupid AI, rule-based NLG. So for elections, for example, so at every election we have an automated article on every Austrian municipality and district and so on. Yeah. And this is generated in real time. As soon as the result for this city or village has arrived, the API produces the text. And also there is 100% human in control, because this is rule-based and we can be sure what the output will look like. Yeah. And we check the training and the rules, and we label these. Even if there's actually no machine autonomy involved, because the only thing the machine is allowed to is to insert the name of the village and the number of the percentage of votes the party had. Yeah. But even this, we label them. And our customers, they can decide, will they also, the disclaimer, will they remove it or will they keep it? Most of them keep them, yeah. But we've had these discussions, of course, because when we worked on the guidelines, my point of view was, as soon as any generative AI is involved at some point, we have to label that because we're transparent. And of course, my colleague from the marketing said, Jesus, every time I write an invitation email to an event and I just get some inspiration from GPT, which is completely legitimate, I should say, by the way, this was created with the help of, that's really actually not the way to go. So we will reevaluate this as soon as we start using sort of fragments or components in our production.